This is the part most people never get past, not because they're weak, not because they're lazy, but because we live in a world that teaches us to dodge the question. From the time we're young, we're taught to color inside the lines, speak when spoken to, say what's expected, and chase what's acceptable. So we end up building lives that look good on paper, polished for the outside world, but hollow on the inside. You ask someone, what do you want? And 9 times out of 10, they'll recite a script. A job title, a number in a bank account, a house with a fence, and maybe a vacation once a year. But if you press a little deeper, if you strip away the conditioning, the expectations, the image they've learned to protect their silence. Because no one taught us how to really look inward. No one taught us how to sit with desire without guilt, without shame, without feeling selfish. But here's the thing. If you don't ask yourself that raw, unfiltered question, you're going to spend your life chasing someone else's dream, living a story that was never yours. You'll wake up one day, maybe 30, maybe 70, and realize you climbed a ladder that was leaning against the wrong wall. You have to get quiet. You have to get uncomfortable. Turn off the noise, the opinions, the fake smiles. Sit with yourself like you're meeting your soul for the first time. What keeps you awake at night? What thought keeps circling back no matter how far you run? What vision makes your heart beat faster, even if you're terrified of it? Don't look for what's safe. Don't look for what makes sense on a spreadsheet. Look for what sets fire to your spirit. It might not be reasonable. It might not impress your parents or your coworkers. But if it's honest, if it's yours, then it's the only thing worth chasing. And don't lie to yourself. That's the worst kind of betrayal, because deep down, you already know. You've always known. You've just been scared to say it out loud, but you owe yourself the truth. You owe yourself the courage to name what you really want, even if you're not ready to go after it yet. Because naming it, that's the beginning of everything. Now this one is fire and thorns. It sounds simple, right? Speak your truth, like something you'd see painted on driftwood in a boutique shop. But when you actually try to live it, it's like standing naked in a snowstorm, exposed, vulnerable, but real. See, we've been trained, conditioned, really to bite our tongues, to smile through the discomfort, to keep things peaceful. But peace without honesty isn't peace. It's just quiet suffering. It's a slow leak in the soul. You smile in the meeting, you nod through the dinner, you laugh at the joke that isn't funny, but inside, you're shrinking. You're folding yourself into smaller and smaller shapes just to fit a room that was never built for you. Speaking your truth isn't about being loud. It's not about being dramatic or hurtful. It's about being real. It's about saying, this is who I am. This is what I think. This is how I feel. And that's hard. It's especially hard when you know your truth might disappoint someone, might challenge a norm, might shatter an illusion that's been keeping a relationship, a job, or a whole identity intact. But what's the cost of staying silent? What's the price of swallowing your truth over and over again until you can't even recognize the sound of your own voice? We silence ourselves to keep the peace, but the longer you stay quiet, the more you disappear. Your needs, your hopes, your boundaries, they start fading like ink left in the sun. And eventually you start convincing yourself that maybe your truth isn't worth sharing. Maybe you're being too much, too sensitive, too demanding. But that's the lie. That's the trap. That's how you lose yourself. And don't get it twisted. Truth has consequences. Not everyone will clap for you. Not everyone will stay. Some people are only in love with the version of you that makes them comfortable. When you stop shrinking, they feel threatened. When you start saying no, when you start asking for what you deserve, when you stop pretending to be okay, it rattles the cages of those who benefited from your silence. But let them be rattled. That's not your burden to carry. Because your truth, it's sacred. It's your compass. And if you don't speak it, if you bury it under the weight of pleasing others, you're betraying the one person you're going to be stuck with for life, yourself. So say it. Say the hard thing. Say it kindly if you can, firmly if you can must, but say it. Even if your voice shakes, even if your knees wobble, because your truth is your power, and every time you speak it, you come home to yourself just a little more. Now, this is the heartbreak no one warns you about. Not the sharp, cinematic kind that comes from a single blow, but the slow, exhausting ache that creeps in over months or years. The weight that settles on your chest and you start calling it normal. You convince yourself it's just life, just how things are. But deep down, you know, something or someone is bleeding the color out of your world. And yet how hard it is to let go. Even when it hurts, even when it's obvious, we cling to the familiar, even if it's toxic, because it's easier than facing the unknown. We keep holding on, telling ourselves maybe it'll change, maybe they'll see me, maybe I'm overreacting. And in the meantime, your spark dims, your energy drains, your laughter becomes something you remember instead of something you live. Sometimes it's a job. You show up every day, grind your soul to dust just to pay bills and stay afloat. You silence your creativity, your ideas, your instincts just to keep things steady. But steady isn't the same as alive. And deep down, that job doesn't feed you, it feeds off of you. You're not growing, you're just enduring. Sometimes it's a relationship. Maybe it started off warm, safe, full of promises, but now it's cold. You're tiptoeing around someone else's mood, censoring yourself to avoid conflict. You've stopped asking for what you need because you're tired of being told you're too much or too sensitive. Love shouldn't feel like a negotiation where you lose a little more of yourself each time. And sometimes it's not even a person or a place. Sometimes it's a habit, a routine, a version of yourself you've outgrown but still wear like armor. Maybe it's perfectionism. Maybe it's people pleasing. Maybe it's that voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough, so you might as well settle. You carry it around like it's part of who you are, but it's not. It's just weight. Dead weight. 8. Letting go isn't weak. It's not failure. It's courage. It's the moment you decide that your peace, your energy, your life is more important than loyalty to something that no longer serves you. And no, it's not easy. It'll hurt. It'll leave you raw. But staying where your soul is suffocating, that's the slowest kind of death there is. So yes, walk away from the things, the people, the roles that are dimming your light. Not because you don't care, but because you finally do. Because you finally realize that your life is too short, too sacred, to waste it at bleeding for things that will never heal. This one lives in the pit of your stomach. It's that ache that comes when the room gets quiet, when the distractions run out. And all that's left is the thought, what if I had just tried? We all carry that one dream, that one idea, that one wild, reckless desire we tucked away years ago because it felt too big, too scary, too impossible. We told ourselves we'd come back to it, we'd get around to it when we had more time, when the bills were paid, when we felt ready. But the truth, ready is a lie we used to stay comfortable. Every time that dream surfaced, you pushed it down, didn't you? Maybe you laughed it off, called it childish. Maybe others told you it was unrealistic and you believed them. Maybe you just got tired. Life got loud, responsibilities stacked up. And so the dream sat on a dusty shelf, untouched but never quite forgotten. But here's the thing about real dreams, they don't die. They haunt. They echo. You catch glimpses of them in other people's lives and feel that bitter sting of recognition. That could have been me. Not out of envy, but out of grief, because you knew that road once. You just didn't walk it. And why not? Because risks come with no guarantees, because risk is uncomfortable, because stepping into the unknown feels like standing on the edge of a cliff, blindfolded with nothing but faith in your gut. We're taught to fear that, taught to aim for safety, for stability, for what's proven and predictable. So we trade our magic for mediocrity and call it being responsible. But let's be honest, aren't you tired of wondering, tired of tiptoeing through life, watching your potential collect dust while you play it safe? There's a cost to risk. Yes, you might fail. You might fall flat on your face. But there's a bigger cost to never trying, regret. That quiet killer, that heavy silence that follows you in the night, asking, why didn't you go for it when you had the chance? Taking the risk doesn't mean you throw caution to the wind without a plan. It means you stop letting fear sit in the driver's seat. It means you stop feeding yourself excuses dressed as logic. It means you finally put some skin in the game of your own life. Because that thing you keep putting off, that idea you shelved, that conversation, that move, that leap, it's not going anywhere. It's waiting for you to get tired of waiting. It's waiting for you to finally believe that maybe, just maybe, you're built for more than surviving the day. So go on, stand on the edge, feel the fear, acknowledge it, then do it anyway, because that risk you keep pushing aside, that might just be the very thing that sets your whole world ablaze. This idea of the right time, oh, it's seductive, isn't it? Smooth talking, silver-tongued, always just out of reach. It whispers, not yet, not today, soon. And we believe it, we listen, because it makes us feel safe. It gives us an excuse to stay where we are while still pretending we're moving forward. We say we're just being smart, being patient, waiting until things settle down. But if we're honest, really honest, we're just scared. We're hoping that one day the stars will line up, the sky will clear, the to-do list will empty, the confidence will magically appear. But life doesn't work like that. Life is chaos. Life is messy and loud and inconvenient. There is no pause button, no ideal setup. There's only now imperfect, unpolished, and utterly real. The perfect moment is a myth, a polished fantasy we use to stall our lives. I'll start when I'm less busy. I'll speak up when I'm more confident. I'll leave when I have a backup plan. But guess what? That magical window where everything feels calm and certain, it never comes, because the conditions are never perfect. And the longer you wait, the heavier the inertia becomes. Waiting becomes a habit, a lifestyle, a silent surrender. We act like we have all the time in the world, like we can afford to delay our dreams, our healing, our becoming. But clocks don't lie. They tick whether you move or not. They tick through your hesitations, your half steps, your maybe's. And every second spent waiting is a second you don't get back. The truth is, you're never going to feel completely ready. You'll always have doubts. You'll always be juggling something: money, relationships, health, fear, failure. That's life. But at some point, you have to move anyway. You have to act not because it's easy, but because it's time. Because too much of your life has already been sacrificed at the altar of someday. And let's be real, some days where dreams go to die. It's the graveyard of could-have-beens. It's where passion rots and potential is buried under layers of procrastination dressed up as logic. You think you're being cautious, but what you're really doing is hesitating your way into a life you never meant to live. So take the shot when your hands are still shaking. Speak the truth while your heart pounds. Start before you feel ready. Begin even when you're scared, because the world doesn't pause for you to feel brave. It just keeps spinning, and if you're not careful, you'll blink and find yourself wondering where the hell all that time went while your dreams sit rusted and untouched on the shelf labeled "I wasn't ready yet." It only takes a spark to start a fire. One choice, one moment of courage, one breath where you decide, I'm not going to live like this anymore. And no, I'm not talking about some dramatic movie scene with rain and violins. I'm talking about real quiet bravery. The kind that happens in the most ordinary of moments. You close a door and mean it. You speak the truth and don't apologize. You put your name on something you believe in, even when your hands are shaking. People think change comes from massive movements, quitting your job, moving across the world, burning it all down. Sometimes, maybe, but more often, it's one small, defiant act of self-respect. It's finally replying to that email with no, thank you. It's walking out of that room that's been draining you for years. It's admitting out loud what you've only dared to whisper in your head. That one act, it becomes a turning point, because bravery compounds. The second you taste it, the second you see the world didn't end when you stood up for yourself, you start wondering what else you could do. You realize the walls that boxed you in were never made of concrete, just fear. And fear, while loud, is fragile when faced. People will say it's not that simple. And they're right, it isn't. But it is that powerful. The smallest action taken from the gut, from that place inside you that refuses to die quietly, can start an avalanche of change. It's not about having a master plan or a perfect vision of the future. It's about saying, this is not the life I was meant to settle for, and doing one thing to honor that. We all wait for permission, for certainty, for a sign from the universe. But the universe doesn't send signs wrapped in neon lights. It whispers through your unrest. It nudges you through discomfort. That pit in your stomach, that unease, that growing frustration. That is the sign. That's your soul, begging you to do something, anything that moves the needle. You don't have to overhaul everything. You don't need a 10-step strategy. Just one move. One decision that honors your worth. One action that shows you trust yourself, even if it scares you. Especially if it scares you, because once you do it, once you feel what it's like to act from your deepest truth instead of your deepest fear, you'll never forget it. It rewires you. It reclaims you. And suddenly the impossible starts to look like just a matter of when, not if. There's a heaviness that lives at the starting line. It's thick, almost physical. A weight pressing on your chest, whispering every reason why you should stay exactly where you are. It's too soon. You're not ready. What if you fail? What will they think? And so you stand there, foot poised in midair, heart pounding, staring at the edge of the unknown. And though you hate where you are, hate the stuckness, the ache of staying still, there's still a strange comfort in it. Because at least it's familiar, at least it's predictable. But that first step, it's rebellion. It's an act of defiance against the again that's ever told you to sit down, to play it safe, to wait your turn. And that's what makes it so damn hard. It's not just about moving forward, it's about shedding a skin. It's about choosing to believe, if only for a second, that your life can look different than it does today. And that belief, that flicker of daring is dangerous. It challenges the lies you've been living in. It forces you to confront all the parts of yourself you've kept on mute. The truth is, we romanticize change, but we rarely talk about the fear that comes with it. Real, gut deep fear, not of the change itself, but of what it demands from us. Change doesn't happen without loss, without risk, without letting go of something, even if it's just the illusion of control. That's why most people never take that step. Not because they don't want to, but because the idea of who they might become terrifies them more than the pain of staying the same. But once you take it, once you actually move, there's a crack in the wall that held you in. A breath you didn't know you'd been holding. Suddenly you're no longer standing in that place of I can't or I shouldn't. You're in motion, and motion changes everything. It builds momentum. It breaks inertia. It silences the doubts that only grow louder in stillness. That first step is liberation because it proves something to yourself, not to the world, not to your parents, not to your partner or your friends. To you, it proves you can choose. You can act. You can say, this is not enough, and go find what is. And once you taste that kind of freedom, even just for a second, you'll never fully belong to your fear again. Yes, it's scary. Yes, it might be messy, but standing still in a life that doesn't feed you. That's slow death. The first step is hard because it tears the veil. It dares to say, I am not waiting anymore. And in that one trembling move, you begin to come alive. This might be the most important truth you'll ever hear. You owe it to yourself to stop living in the shadows of what ifs. You owe it to your spirit, your soul, your heart to step out of the quiet, half-alive existence you've been putting up with and actually live. For so long, we tell ourselves we don't have the time, the resources, the right circumstances. We wait for permission, for the universe to send us a sign, for the right moment when all the pieces fall perfectly into place. But the truth is, life isn't some grand blueprint that unfolds perfectly. It's messy and unpredictable, and most of the time, it doesn't wait for your timing. You don't need everything to be lined up. You don't need all the answers. All you need is the courage to try. It might be small at first. Maybe it's just taking one step. Maybe it's sending that email. Maybe it's having that conversation you've been avoiding. But each small action, it's part of a bigger movement. A movement towards yourself, towards your full potential. And the more you let yourself try, the more you realize you're capable of so much more than you ever imagined. You owe it to yourself to leap without knowing what's on the other side. To trust that, even if you fall, you will rise again. Because there's no dignity in sitting on the edge, staring at the void, and wishing you were brave enough to jump. You owe it to yourself to take that risk, to feel the rush of doing something new, even if it scares you. Fear, after all, is not an enemy, it's a companion, a reminder that you're on the edge of growth. But too often we let fear control us, paralyze us, convince us that we're safer where we are. But safety isn't living. Safety is staying in the same place year after year, making the same choices, seeing the same faces, dreaming the same dreams without ever chasing them. You owe it to yourself to break free from that cage of safety, to leap into the unknown and trust that your wings will open along the way. And you owe it to yourself to truly live, not just exist, not just go through the motions, ticking off tasks, meeting expectations, pleasing others. Living is about passion. It's about throwing your whole heart into something. It's about embracing joy, embracing pain, embracing all of it, because living isn't a perfect sequence of events. It's a wild, beautiful, sometimes brutal experience of being alive. It's about finding something that makes you feel really, truly alive, whether it's a person, a place, a passion, or even a cause. You can't afford to let those moments slip away, waiting for a better time, a better version of yourself. There's no better version of you than the one who says, now I'm living and I'm all in. The clock is ticking. Life doesn't wait for the right time, the right circumstances, or for you to feel like you've got it all figured out. It doesn't owe you any explanations, but you owe it to yourself to show up for it, to try, to leap, to live, to walk into your own life with your eyes wide open and your heart full of possibility. Because if you don't, who will? The world will keep turning and you'll be stuck on the sidelines wondering what could have been. You owe it to yourself to give it a chance, even if the path ahead isn't clear, even if the risk is high, because the greatest regret isn't in the failure, it's in the silence of a life half lived, waiting for tomorrow to be brave. And tomorrow, my friend, never comes. There's something remarkable about waking up, not just in the literal sense, but in the deep, gut-shifting way that happens when you realize you've been sleepwalking through life. You know the feeling, it's that moment when the veil is lifted, when the fog clears and you suddenly see everything with startling clarity. The truth hits like a jolt of electricity. The comfortable numbness you once accepted as normal now feels like a prison. The autopilot mode you'd been running on for years, decades, maybe no longer feels safe. It feels like a lie. But here's the thing, waking up doesn't happen gently. It doesn't happen with a slow, gradual process of enlightenment. It happens in an instant, in one single decision, one bold choice to finally stop letting life pass you by. One moment where you choose to really see the world around you, and more importantly, to see yourself in it. To realize that you're not just a passive observer of your own story, but the one holding the pen, the one who decides what happens next. And once you do that, once you step out of that haze, once you stand firmly in the awareness that you are the architect of your own destiny, you cannot unsee it. You cannot go back to mindlessly following the same routines, the same habits, the same stale patterns. You cannot return to the comfort, ignorance, or the safety of denial. It's like opening a door to a room you didn't even know existed, only to realize you'd been trapped in a smaller one your entire life. Once you step into that larger, fuller version of yourself, there's no going back to the tiny, cramped space you'd been hiding in. Before you wake up, you don't realize how much of your life has been spent on autopilot, how much of your energy was devoted to avoiding discomfort, to living just below the surface of who you really are. You make decisions out of fear, out of what's expected of you, out of what's familiar, because the unknown is too unsettling. You suppress your true desires, your needs, your voice, because the world is easier to navigate when you're just going with the flow. But when you wake up to your own power, to the realization that you are the one who gets to shape your path, everything changes. The small things that used to eat up your time, societal pressures, mindless routines, people-pleasing, fear of judgment, they start to fall away. They lose their grip. You begin to shed the layers of shoulds and musts that never belonged to you in the first place. It's uncomfortable, yes, it's jarring. It's like the moment you realize you've been holding your breath for years and suddenly you gasp for air. And for a moment, you'll feel exposed, vulnerable, unsure of what to do with the newfound clarity. But that's the point, isn't it? Because clarity is a gift even when it feels raw. It forces you to confront your truth, the stuff you've been avoiding, the habits that are no longer serving you, the relationships that drain you, the fears that were never really yours. And then comes the magic, the power to choose differently, to choose with intention, not out of habit, to speak your truth without shrinking, to pursue your passions without asking for permission, to demand respect from others because you finally learned to give it to yourself. Once you realize you can be the creator of your own reality, there's a spark inside you that can never be dimmed again. You've been awakened to your potential, and now nothing can put you back to sleep. And here's the kicker, the world doesn't want you awake. It doesn't want you fully aware of your own agency. It doesn't want you to realize that you're not just a cog in a machine. So it will try to lull you back into a stupor. It will tell you that you're dreaming too big or asking for too much. It will try to convince you that your waking moments are a mistake, that you should just go back to sleep to settle for the life others have mapped out for you. But once you've truly woken up, once you've seen the truth of your own power and potential, you'll never go back. You'll never let someone else's narrative define your own. You'll never let yourself fall back into a life that's lived in half measures and muted colors. Once you've experienced that moment of full, undiluted awareness, it's like you've tasted the raw, unfiltered essence of life, and you can never forget what it feels like to be fully awake. You are no longer simply moving through life, waiting for things to happen to you. You're actively shaping your future. And that is freedom. So, take that step. Wake up. Live fully. Don't wait for someone to give you permission or for the perfect moment to arrive. The world is waiting for the person you were always meant to be, the person you've been quietly hiding, the person who's been asleep at the wheel for far too long. It's time to grab the wheel with both hands, to steer your life in the direction you've always wanted, to stop letting fear or comfort keep you from your own greatness. Once you step into the light of your own potential, you'll never go back to being a passive observer. You'll become the driver of your own journey. And from that place, everything you've ever wanted, the life you've dreamed of, is within your reach. It's all waiting for you. You just have to wake up and reach out.